Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you so much for dropping by. So, when I was in college, I studied philosophy, and I decided not to major in it. I almost did. But I would sometimes joke around with people about, like, what's the meaning of life? In this deep existential quest to figure out what life is all about. And I would joke about what a big deal it is, and I would also kind of joke about, philosophy as a way to figure that out, because anyone who's studied academic philosophy can tell you it's it's quite academic. It isn't necessarily going to help you answer that, but maybe it will. But Buddhism offers a very interesting answer to that question, and in a way, Buddhism is based. I want to drop the word Buddhism. I want to say Buddha Dharma. The teachings of the Buddha are really based on having a very clear answer to that question. And, the Buddha offers a very uncompromising answer to that question. And it's simply this, that the meaning of life is to become a Buddha, is to become a liberated, fully, eternally liberated being who is completely devoted. Once that occurs, once there is a final cessation of suffering, and then is devoted to one thing, is to leading other beings to a complete cessation of suffering. One of my Dharma mentors, who sadly no longer in his body, I never had the chance to meet him live, but his writing and his YouTube videos been deeply touched me deeply. Paul Roberts, he points out that up until the last 100 years, like, what I'm saying was just a given, that Buddha Dharma is about leading one to becoming a Buddha. But in the sort of the last 100 years, this idea has kind of crept in that Buddha Dharma is about having a better life, decreasing your suffering, all these things other than that. Whereas really what the Buddha taught was, is that we're on this intensely vast journey that's primarily riddled with riddled with suffering, and that the essence of what the Buddha taught is to bring that to an end, bring the suffering component of the journey to an end through becoming a Buddha. So, cultivating compassion, getting in shape, becoming a better person, like, all these things are great. And in terms of the final cessation of suffering, which is what the Buddha taught and what the Buddha called all of us to, those things aren't really going to do it. I'm not telling people to, that doesn't mean that we won't work out or maybe eat well or, strive to a certain extent to be better people. And just to be crystal clear that those kind of, and this is the genius of Shin Buddhism, we need to be crystal clear that those things are not, ultimately not what Buddha Dharma is about, and they're not going to complete the journey. They're not going to lead to that final liberation. So the way Paul Roberts, puts it so eloquently is, sure, do all sorts of self-help, anything that's good and virtuous for yourself, as long as you're crystal clear that that's not going to lead you to enlightenment. Because otherwise we're relying on self-power, which is, The essence of Shin Buddhism is relying on other power. Not relying, that doesn't mean like we don't do basic self-care, like relying on Amitabha Buddha, and so we like don't take showers or we just eat junk food, like that's. And Shinrin spoke to the contrary of, and that doesn't mean like, oh, I'm just going to trust in Amitabha so I can just like, be mean and just do whatever I want to do. And Shinrin was quite contrary of that view and pointed out that just because you have the antidote doesn't mean that you drink a poison. And, for this particular approach to Buddha Dharma, need to be very clear that our own efforts are insufficient to lead us to final liberation. So thanks so much for watching this. I hope it's helpful. Namo Amida Butsu.